Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Massachusetts Transgender Political Coalition Town Hall. I believe this is the first town hall in quite a while, so I'm so excited to be able to be here and be here with you all. Thank you for joining. I do want to say that I am currently I'm currently just so excited every time I'm in a room with folks who are supporting trans rights and advocating for trans folks. So, um, like I said, my name's Casey. I use they, them pronouns. I'm the steering committee chair for MTPC. And I wanted to introduce myself, and then I'll let Trey Andre introduce themselves. And before I move further, you'll notice that the meeting is being recorded. So whatever you would like to do to make yourself comfortable with that, whether you would like to be on camera or off camera, feel free to do that. But it will be recorded and made publicly available. So we want to make sure that that's transparent and everyone is aware of that. And I would love to, Trey Andre, for you to say a few words about yourself. Trey Andre is our executive director and a great leader from my point of view and from the steering committee's point of view. So welcome.
Those are very, very kind words, Casey. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Trey Andre Carmel Valentine. My pronouns are he and they, and I'm the executive director of MTPC. And MTPC is actually what launched my leadership back in 2006, 2007. And so it is uh, the greatest honor to come back around and serve as the organization's executive director. And I've been so excited about what we have been building and working towards here at MTPC, and really excited to share with you all. So thank you all for being here with us. Seems like some folks are having some trouble joining us. Hopefully that gets worked out. But both Kelsey, who is our Director of Development and Resident Woman in STEM, will be also handling some of the technical aspects of our town hall. So I appreciate you, Kelsey. Just want to shout you out there. And also, we've got our Director of Programs, MG Zhang, who will be sharing more about our programs a little later on. But just wanted to quickly go over our agenda for this evening. We'll be, I don't know if we can go to the next slide. So we'll be starting off with a land acknowledgement, and then going over our community agreements. I kind of actually already started introducing the MTPC staff, but maybe we could talk a little bit more about folks who are on the steering committee, review our strategic plan, go over our programs and services, our advocacy work, our education and training, and future plans, and then open it up for community discussion. So I'd like to kick us off with our land acknowledgement. MTPC operates on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Massachusetts, Mohican, Nauset, Nipmuc, Pawtucket, and Wampanoag peoples. We recognize these lands are currently occupied by the Commonwealth, which appropriated its name. We honor the indigenous ancestors and indigenous peoples who reside here and steward this land, despite a painful history of genocide, forced removal, and colonization. In addition, we know that indigenous peoples have emigrated to this region largely because of the global conditions created by US imperialism. We believe that global imperialism and white supremacy have colluded to create and sustain gender norms. MTPC commits to undoing the legacy of settler colonialism by challenging and unlearning the ways in which colonialism shows up in our work and our lives. We believe that our liberation depends on this too. And in addition, We stand in solidarity with all indigenous movements across the globe and those fighting genocide, including Palestine, Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and there are 30 plus other countries experiencing ongoing state-led and non-state-led mass killings. And we are in solidarity with you all. And to sort of just ground us in sort of the space we are in together tonight, we'd like to go over some community agreements. The first is to practice curiosity without criticism, being mindful of intent versus impact. Consider the impact of what we're saying will have, not just our intention behind it. While we should assume good intentions of others and will practice compassionate intentions of ourselves, we also allow the space for the impact of our actions and our words to be discussed. The next is take space, make space. If you are the first to raise your hand or speak or tend to speak a lot, we just ask you to make space for others and for folks who are maybe more quieter to challenge themselves to take up space. Land the plane. Please be mindful of how long you take to make your point and don't provide unnecessary context or personal narratives. The next is trans activism is both joyful and painful. So we want to leave space for ourselves and others to have emotional reactions. We strive to promote and demonstrate compassionate caring for ourselves and each other. Try it on. Take a minute to sit with a thought before making an immediate reaction or decision and allow others the same before they make a decision or reaction. Next, no one knows everything, but together we know a lot. So we encourage constructive feedback and curiosity from others. What's learned here leaves here, and what's shared here stays here. So any personal stories, any identifying information that stays here, but what you've learned, absolutely, share and spread. And speak from your own beak. Don't speak for other people or try to tell their stories. Only speak from your own experience. And last but not least, check your biases. And so if we can agree to be in this space together, and with these community agreements, we will move forth. Okay.
Amazing.
I think some folks are still having issues joining, Kelsey.
Yep, I'm trying to work behind the scenes to
I
get that
appreciate you so much. Okay. Well, please bear with us as we work through all of the technical difficulties. But again, this is being recorded, so if folks aren't able, we'll be sharing this later on.
Absolutely.
And before we talk about MTPC itself, I want to just pass it over to Casey to share a little bit more about some housekeeping things.
Sure. Thank you so much. Just two quick housekeeping things. As we're going through, we're going to have a lot of information to present. We do welcome questions just because of the nature of recording and different learning styles. If you could drop the questions in the chat, myself and Kelsey and DJ will be monitoring the chat, and I'm happy to kind of bring those in as it makes sense in the presentation. And also we will get to the questions at the end as well if they don't make it in the moment that you drop them in the chat. So thank you so much for that. And just because we are all wanting to be in a safe space or a safer space and a space where we can respect each other and follow the community agreements, I just do also want to say that we will ask if anyone is making any statements that are harmful or do not serve the purpose of our organization or this meeting, we will kindly remove you from the conversation and loop back around to that. So please just be mindful of that.
Thanks, Casey. Okay, so just to share a little bit more about MTPC, we are the oldest active trans advocacy organization in the United States that works to advance lived equity for trans and non-binary folks in Massachusetts, not just equality under the law. We believe that our role and responsibility is to ensure that trans communities and trans rights continue to have a strong defender, while providing critical support for community members impacted by discrimination, oppression, and violence. And MTPC strives to disrupt these states of inequity that our communities face by cultivating trans non-binary leadership, by building economic, political, and cultural power for our community, and through education, training, and advocacy to increase the capacity of businesses, organizations, and systems to be inclusive and affirming. So we'll share a little bit more about our strategic plan. I can move on to the next slide. So when I came on as executive director in July of 2019, the organization wanted to conduct a community needs assessment. And we wanted to use this community needs assessment to greater understand the needs of our communities and how to really respond to those needs. And so the input from the Working for Lived Equity Community Needs Assessment was used to develop our strategic plan and our community programs. We really wanted to focus on building trans power, so strengthening the pipeline of multi-generational trans and non-binary leadership, as well as acting as a conduit of relevant resources and best practices for all of our community members, cis allies, and organizations who want to work with or want to better support our community members. We also wanted to strengthen the infrastructure and skills within organizations and systems to enable them to be responsive and accountable to the needs of our community members. And we wanted to strengthen MTPC's organizational ability to grow and be a point of leadership and professional development opportunities for everyone within the organization. Next, I'm going to share a little bit more about our funding sources. As you can see, and we'll talk a little bit more about how these funding sources sort of impact our programs. But most of our funding comes from foundations and our individual donors, that we have a very healthy and diverse funding source. So again, most of it comes from individual donations and foundations, as well as our events. Our main event is the Professionals for Trans Rights, which will be coming up soon in May. And then we have our training and speaking engagements, as well as some funding from the government. But as you can see, that is quite minimal, and we would like to keep it that way. And so this is really where we get most of our funding from. And if you have any further questions about specific, like if you want to know more specific about the types of foundations that fund us, or the events, or more about our government funding, we are happy to give you more information during the Q&A. And so I will now pass it along to MG, who is our Director of Programs, to talk more about our programs and services.
Thank you, Trey Andre, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. As Trey Andre said, I'm MG. I use they, them, theirs pronouns, and I'm the Director of Programs here. I've been with the MTPC team since June of 2022, happily chugging along and currently leading our programs and services. So I'll share briefly about each one from left to right. The first one I want to name is our IDA network, or Identity Document Assistance Network. And this is our most robust program where we are providing name change assistance to folks throughout Massachusetts and New England to alleviate the hardships and barriers that exist for legal name change petitions. And we do that through a variety of means. We have developed guides and resources, as well as example forms of all of the required paperwork needed to submit with the local probate court. We provide financial assistance. Folks in New England can apply for up to $400 in financial assistance through our IDA Network Financial Assistance Fund to offset any costs that are incurred in the legal name change process. For the average person, it costs around $400 to ensure that their name is updated legally in filing that, for their ID, for the cost of a new passport, amending your birth certificate. So those costs can add up very quickly. And in order to make this process more accessible and equitable to folks, we provide that financial assistance. We also have connections to legal support and legal advocacy. We have a growing network of volunteer legal advocates who have experience in law, as well as have been trained on the legal name change process that can assist folks with that. We also host name change clinics throughout the state, have occasional drop-in hours, usually in the fall, and then also host webinars where we provide our name change clinics virtually to get a broader reach throughout the state. Additionally, we have our Trans Leadership Academy program, and the Trans Leadership Academy program, often shortened to TLA, is our program to develop a new generation of trans and non-binary leaders and creating new opportunities in employment and education here at MTPC within the trans advocacy and LGBTQ advocacy spaces, as well as the community at large. And here in this program, we are working on career development and career readiness skills, material and financial support, as well as having community spaces and mentorship. We had the Trans Leadership Academy 2023 cohort last spring, and I'll talk more about that when I dive deeper into the TLA. But the TLA is on pause right now as we develop new models outside of just the cohort model. And our next program is GEAR, Gender Euphoria and Affirmation Resources is what GEAR stands for. This we launched in January of 2023, so it's been operating for a little over a year now. And through GEAR, we provide access to gender-affirming garments, products, supplies, and resources to folks across the state at no cost to them. We have a variety of products in our inventory that some of which we've gotten from donations from trans-led businesses, some of which we have purchased to, again, offset the cost of these garments and ensure that people can request these at no cost to them. Our newest program is REACH, REACH Emergency Funding. REACH stands for Relief and Emergency Assistance for Community Hope. We launched this in September of last year, so this is our newest program. And through REACH, we provide trans and non-binary folks in Massachusetts with emergency funds for a variety of expenses, whether that is housing and rental needs, basic needs like food security, mental health and medical expenses, as well as disaster recovery and other unforeseen needs that may come up for someone. Additionally, we co-host the Trans Youth Summit alongside other LGBTQ organizations in Massachusetts. The Trans Youth Summit is a day-long community conference organized by trans youth for trans youth. And there are also workshops and educational sessions available for parents and caregivers. We had the great joy of hosting the Trans Youth Summit just a few weeks ago at the end of March. And go to the next slide. So I would love to dive deeper into each of our programs and share some of the impact with you as well. This is all impact data from FY24. So that is from July of 2023 up until now. And so some of the impact pieces we've had throughout our various services. With our Identity Document Assistance Network, or IDA network, I mentioned that we run name change clinics throughout the state. This is honestly one of the funnest parts of my job, getting to go across to different community organizations and assist people with that process. And so far, to date, we've had clinics in Boston, Cambridge, and Needham. We have one coming up at the beginning of May in Worcester. And then we are planning a statewide webinar for June for our Pride Name Change Clinic. One of our goals with the IDA network is to ensure that we are reaching all of the pockets in Massachusetts as possible. As a small team, sometimes that is a struggle of ours, but as we grow, we really are prioritizing areas of Massachusetts that we're not frequently in, knowing that many of our services are most accessible to Boston residents, and that we want to be more available to folks in more rural areas of the state. In this year, we have directly assisted 141 Massachusetts residents with their legal name change petition through clinics in 2024. And that is done with the support of MTPC staff, as well as our volunteer legal advocates who support us at our clinics, some of whom I see joining us today as well. A business partner we have in our IDA network is Namesake Collaborative. Namesake was founded by Luke Lennon, and it's an online platform that semi-automates the name change process. Currently, it's available in Massachusetts, again, with those growth plans to reach a broader community. There are currently 436 active users on Namesake Collaborative. And so again, this is where folks can go online and streamline the name change process by completing their forms, removing a lot of those barriers that exist in trying to decipher legal language and looking at court forms that we're not looking at on a regular basis. With our IDA network financial assistance, to date, we have provided $9,522 to New England residents, to 40 New England residents, and that is in FY24. And so our IDA Network Financial Assistance Fund is available both to Massachusetts residents and folks in surrounding New England states. Go to the next slide. More on our IDA network. One of the main things that I've been working on this year with our IDA network program is creating a robust volunteer network to get the people power we need in order to build trans power. We've done that through training 22 community members on assisting others with their legal name change petition. We hosted a training webinar a couple months ago on how to assist others with the name change process, so other organizations and folks can host clinics in their community. We have 15 volunteer legal advocates in the IDA network. So these are folks with experience in law, providing legal services and with the name change process. And then additionally, the name change process requires notarization of a couple documents. Notarization can often be inaccessible and cost money. So in our IDA network, we currently have 28 volunteer notaries that can notarize documents for the legal name change petition and other needs, often at our clinics and located throughout the state. Go to the next slide. And our growth goals for the IDA network for 2024 and beyond look like expanding the resources and guides we have. Currently, we are equipped with simple name change petitions, and we are looking to increase our knowledge on more complex cases, such as folks who are asylum seekers, immigrants, minors, and college students who are seeking to legally change their name. The process can look different based on immigration status, based on age, based on location. So in order to not just reach the average case, we want to expand our resources to be more comprehensive. We're also looking to expand our volunteer network, connecting with legal firms, more notaries, translators, and community liaisons. We would love to see the IDA network really become a community space where folks can connect with one another about their name change experiences, have ride shares to probate courts, and all of that. With The webinar we hosted in February on name change, assisting others with name changes. That's something we would like to continue to do in developing a Train the Trainers program on name change assistance. Again, so folks can be hosting these clinics within their own communities, in addition to the ones that MTPC will continue to host. All right, and REACH, I mentioned, is our newest program. REACH launched in September of 2023, so just a little over 6 months ago. And for anyone who follows along closely to what MTPC does, you'll know that it was a process for us to launch REACH and figure out how we can best create this program that is equitable for the people applying as well as staff in the review process. In the first 3 months of REACH being open, we received 916 applications, and about half of that number came in the first 2 weeks. And so we noted the immediate need to evaluate what our review and disbursement process is to handle the large volume that we received. And we launched REACH because in our 2019 community needs assessment that Triandre mentioned earlier, we knew that 1 in 2 trans folks in Massachusetts struggle to pay their bills each month. And so that really showed to us the need for having financial assistance programs and options available to our community. So from November to December, September to December, we had to close the REACH applications twice due to that high volume and as we were navigating the review process. In November and December, I worked with Triandre as well as our steering committee members to redesign the review process to improve equity for applicants and staff. And so the process as it stands now, applications continue to be accepted on a rolling basis. So folks can submit their application online at any time, and disbursement is done on a monthly cycle. So folks who get their application in before the 18th of the month are considered for aid in that month. And then if you submit after the 18th, your application is in the next month cycle. Due to the high volume of applications we receive, we do have a lottery system where it randomizes the applications after they are reviewed and sorted to ensure greater equity rather than individually selecting applicants in the process. Right now, due to current grant funds that we have, Massachusetts and Boston applications are reviewed separately. So all folks fill out the same application, but based on location, if you are located in the city of Boston, that is one pool of applicants. And if you are located outside of the city of Boston, that is another pool of applicants. And again, that is due to restricted funding we have for one of the grants that funds the financial assistance through REACH. So to date in this fiscal year, since we've launched REACH, we have distributed a total of $16,610 in financial assistance to 39 Massachusetts residents. And our goals for 2024 and beyond are distributing $40K in emergency funds in this fiscal year, increasing the funding amount for 2025, knowing that there is always going to be a need and growing need for this type of financial assistance, providing additional resources through partnerships. So things like groceries, hygiene products, and everything else. And also continuing to develop best practices and hearing from our community and the people who are applying on what they need from us and how their experience going through the application process is. Next slide. All right, and next program is GEAR. GEAR, again, is Gender Euphoria and Affirmation Resources. We love our acronyms here at MTPC. And through GEAR, we provide trans and non-binary people with access to gender-affirming products, garments, supplies, and resources. Like I had mentioned, currently in stock, we have trans tape body tape, tuck it up tucking underwear, GC2B binders, unclockable bra buds, and sharps containers. These logos listed are our current offerings, and we some of which we have purchased items from in order to make sure that Massachusetts residents applying don't have to pay any cost. And then some of them we also receive donations or discounts as we buy in bulk and for the support of this program. In total, we have distributed 65 products to 44 Massachusetts residents. The first thing on my to-do list tomorrow actually is to go to the post office and mail some things out. So we really love our gear program, and as it grows, we want to develop more resources for self-empowerment and ensuring that trans folks have the resources that they need in order to feel joy and comfort in their bodies and their minds. Next slide. So as we grow gear, 2024 and beyond, we would like to have an organized inventory online so folks can see our products online as they're requesting it and expand the offerings we have. On the application, the last question we ask is, what would you like us to see next? And so folks can put their input on types of gender affirming garments and products that they might like to see. And as we grow this program, we want to take that feedback and use that to design what products will be in our next lineup. We also want to create digital and educational content. And so this is self-empowerment resources for individuals to feel equipped in making their own decisions, as well as common practices or scenarios that might come up, such as, how do I tell my employer I'd like to go by this name? Or how can I read my insurance card? And so educational content like that is a goal of ours to develop, again, for that self-empowerment. Additionally, we'd like to partner with local trans practitioners, people like fitness coaches, massage therapists, and all of that, in order to, one, being supportive of local trans practitioners here in the state, as well as providing their services, again, for comfort and joy in our bodies to folks across Massachusetts. All right, and the Trans Youth Summit. So the Trans Youth Summit has been being hosted, I want to say, since 2008. So it is co-hosted by MTPC, Bagley, Bagley being the Boston Alliance for LGBTQ Youth, Greater Boston PFLAG, and this year Out Metro West also joined as a co-host. So the 2024 Trans Youth Summit took place on Saturday, March 23rd, so just a few weeks ago. And again, this is a day-long community conference for trans and non-binary young people, as well as their parents and caregivers. There's 3 main tracks at the Trans Youth Summit. There's a littles track that consists of youth 12 and under, a youth track for people aged 13 to 24, and a parent and caregiver track as well. And MTPC and Greater Boston PFLAG organized the parent and caregiver track to offer workshops to caregivers while their young people are out doing their own workshops. TYS 2024 had great attendance, even though it was a rainy day. We had a total of 156 attendees, 20 being in the littles track, 85 youth, and 51 caregivers. All right, and the Trans Leadership Academy. So again, this is our program to develop a new generation of intersectional and multi-generational trans and non-binary leaders, creating new opportunities in employment, education, and all of the spheres. In the TLA 2023 cohorts, we did that through career development workshops. So this was, we met on a week-by-week basis and had different career readiness topics each week, everything from resume assistance to building LinkedIn profiles, mock interviews, and all of that. There's also material and financial support involved in the TLA 2023. So in addition to participating in it, all participants received monthly stipends to offset the costs of the time that they are spending with us to develop themselves personally and professionally. The TLA also acted as a community space, and there was mentorship involved. The TLA also brought us DJ, who is our operations coordinator. They are a graduate of the TLA 2023 cohorts. And you can read more about the specifics that happened in the TLA 2023 impact report that Trey Andre shared in the chat. That has a lot of great information about all of the blessings that come when we invest in trans people and when we really prioritize building trans power. Yes, and Rebel is also on our steering committee. So again, with our goal being to create opportunities for leadership, both at MTPC and beyond, we see that coming to fruition by being blessed with DJ and Rebel's presence. So I mentioned in the overview of our programs that the TLA is currently on pause. Again, if you're following along to what MTPC's happenings are, you'll know that we got a loss in funding in December of 2023. The grant that we expected to fund the TLA 2024 cohort did not come through, so we had to pivot. But ultimately, we really saw that as a blessing in disguise because the grant that we previously had really confined us to working in a specific timeline and only being able to run this program in the city of Boston, which I mentioned earlier. A huge value of ours is going beyond the city, knowing that more rural areas need these services just as much, if not sometimes more, than in urban places. So our goals are creating new models for the TLA 2024 and beyond. We'll be updating the curriculum and developing continuing education opportunities for the growing TLA community. So that would be both our 2023 graduates and the growth as we welcome in new TLA members and community. Facilitating open access virtual community education and learning sessions for 2025. One specific topic that we really would like to offer is financial literacy workshops in order for trans folks to build their knowledge in financial literacy, as we know that is wealth disparities within the trans community are very wide very frequently. Additionally, we are coming up with creative funding models, which I will let Kelsey discuss more.
Hey everyone. So I put a link in the chat, which has more details about really our update that we provided on the Trans Leadership Academy that MG alluded to. And one of the things we talked about that in that letter was about how we wanted to create a new, sustainable, and really creative, innovative funding model for the program. And the primary thing that we would like to do with this is to create a self-sustaining program, essentially, by partnering with businesses, corporations, organizations who are prepared to financially invest in the program, but more specifically into the development and training of a new generation of trans leaders in whatever field they are associated with. So to provide an example, the way this would work is that we would contract with a business or an organization that would provide funding to MTPC to run a really intensive program similar, if not the same as the cohort model we have done in 2023. And they would provide all of the funding that it would take to provide this for a certain number of participants in the program. We would then, as a part of this contract, work with them and to provide them with training and resources to create an inclusive and affirming workplace and environment for trans and non-binary folks, particularly thinking about the intersectional and ways that these the people that we're hoping to engage with through this program walk through life and the different types of intersectional oppression and discrimination they have faced or could face. So this would not just be about transness and about pronouns, but about really creating an intersectionally inclusive and affirming workspace. Because this is not just about trying to prevent instances of transphobia in a workplace, but also about trying to reduce instances of racism, etc. And this would be so that we could then have a pipeline where folks who are graduating from the Trans Leadership Academy would have internships or entry-level positions with these partnering organizations who are providing the funding for them to go through the Trans Leadership program. And this is what we would hope would create a virtuous cycle of these organizations funding the program, MTPC going in and creating a more affirming, more inclusive, and safer spaces for trans folks, for BIPOC trans folks, where we can then feel more comfortable sending these folks into these places and really kickstarting their opportunities of leadership in business or government or other types of work. So that's really the funding model that we are aiming for, because we don't want to rely on the government funds that we had started this program with, as MG alluded to, because there's so many strings attached. Where can participants be from? How can we really support these? And what we're looking for is engaged partners who have capital, who want to align with our mission and values and want to create new futures for trans folks and build trans power with us. So that's all I really have to say about the Trans Leadership Academy. Is there anything else you wanted to say, MG, before I move on? Okay, so with that, I'm going to move on to the next segment of our town hall, which is to talk about our policy and advocacy work. Just kind of give a brief overview. As Troy Andre mentioned earlier, MTPC has a long history of working towards legal equality for trans and non-binary folks in Massachusetts. Our mission statement used to be to ensure legal protections based on gender identity and presentation in Massachusetts. Upon victory in 2018 with the Yes on 3 campaign, for all intents and purposes, MTPC accomplished our original mission statement and achieved legal statewide equality for trans and non-binary folks in Massachusetts. Upon this moment, MTPC realized that there was more that we needed to do in focusing on lived equity. We saw this in our community needs assessment, which really reinforced the decision that our steering committee made when investing in Troy Andre as a leader to come in and shift MTPC's focus towards community development, building trans power, and creating greater lived equity, not just equality under the law. So with that said, the last few years have really been focused on developing those new parts of MTPC and the new parts of our mission that grew out of the work that we had accomplished over the prior 20 years. So where we're at now is we're seeing a landscape where we really need to be more responsive and be more active in policy and advocacy spaces. There is a very well-known landscape, which I'm not going to go into in detail here, of rising anti-trans sentiment and policy and violence and oppression throughout the US, throughout the UK, and many other places throughout the world, led by Western colonialism and white supremacy. And we are seeing that take root in Massachusetts in really, really troublesome ways. So this is where we're at now, and we are trying to focus our efforts and reshape our efforts to get back to this place where MTPC used to be at the forefront of fighting for trans people in Massachusetts. So just a quick overview here on this slide of that, we are working to inform and shape legislation and other policy efforts at statewide, county, and municipal levels. Our focuses have included county and municipal and things in the past. Some of our early wins were protections for gender identity and trans folks in the city of Boston and the city of Cambridge. And is really thinking about how can we get back to those roots. But we're also wanting to advocate for policy that is not just protective and defensive, but also pushing for more policy that is lived equity focused in creating safer, less expensive ways for people to be their authentic selves, which we'll talk about. And in other levels, we want to support and advance our community in their ability to organize and activate together. And then we also have two groups that we're kind of a part of or leading. The first is the Mass Trans Health Coalition, which I'll talk about next, and the Massachusetts Trans Advocacy Working Group. So the Massachusetts Trans Health Coalition is a membership organization, more of a coalition than MTPC really is at this point, where we work with people from that are medical providers, work at hospitals or healthcare centers, work at insurance companies, that work at health advocacy organizations, and other community orgs that serve trans people throughout the state. So this group discusses bills, policy, legislation, advocacy that's related specifically to trans health and gender affirming care. It coordinates responses to issues and media coverage and provides testimony in support of bills that will create greater access for trans affirming healthcare. We are hoping in the next year or two to create more of an offshoot of the Trans Health Coalition to include patients in this process, to not just inform what's happening, but also to inform us of what is actually happening on the ground, and to help folks navigate issues that they're facing. So right now there is a group that, and members of the group can bring issues that their patients are facing, but we want to create a little bit more access for patients to come directly to the Trans Health Coalition. And at its base, this is also an opportunity for providers throughout the state to share resources, information with each other, share about experiences that they had while advocating for a patient, or seek help from other folks who may have successfully advocated for their patient or their client in the past. Right. So next, I just want to talk briefly. This is a very new group that we are collaboratively establishing. This is our Trans Advocacy Working Group. So we have partnered with Mass Equality, Trans Health, who are located in Northampton, and GLAD, single A GLAD, GLBTQ Advocates and Defenders, to come together and really try and have at this point, informal group to address what is happening in the state, particularly focusing on currently disinformation and misinformation in the media. That's really where this stemmed from. What we're hoping to do is to focus on awareness building and educational campaigns, everything from just making sure that trans and non-binary folks in Massachusetts know that we're here and know that we're doing this work and that there are advocates for them. We're trying, we would like to more actively fight disinformation in the media and in government, whether that be at school level, town level, or statewide level, and other organizations throughout the state, agencies, businesses, et cetera, particularly in healthcare spaces. We are working to develop a reporting form for discrimination and anti-LGBTQ hate throughout the state. This is something that all of these orgs have in some way attempted to do it in the past, and we really want to bring those efforts centralized and work on it together so that we're not duplicating efforts. Massachusetts has a long-standing interfaith trans advocacy network that showed up in a huge way in 2018 for our Yes on 3 campaign, and has been very active in our advocacy efforts throughout the years. And that's something that this group also really wants to invest in and bring back those partnerships, because we know that when we're partnered with each other and with our allies, that we are the strongest. Very similar to what I mentioned before, advocating for protective and equitable access legislation, but not just at the statewide level as MTPC is focusing on, but also at the federal levels. Yes, thank you for pointing out Mycroft, Marcia, who is someone who in the past has been a very strong leader for MTPC, as well as for the interfaith work that MTPC has been a part of. And then finally, this group also hopes to support advocates, candidates, and organizers throughout Massachusetts, whether that is just simply from helping them understand trans and non-binary folks and identities and issues that are throughout the state, but also just about trying to provide resources to folks to organize, to advocate, and to campaign. So next I'm going to get into a little bit, and I'm not going to go through these in super detail because I know we don't have as much time as I could talk about all of these things. But I want to talk about what our current policy priorities are, what are current policies that we're supporting and or opposing, and then also talk a little bit about what's next. So one of our top priorities this year is passing House Bill 3017, which is an act relative to gender identity and Massachusetts identification. This is the Gender X bill. This is the third legislative cycle that this bill has been through, and we really just want to get this done because we'd like to move on to bigger and better things. X designations are currently available on all identification cards at the RMV, but this is not codified into law. So that means that if a new director of the RMV came in, they could change this policy and remove the X designation from RMV policy. So this bill would incorporate the X marker as an option on all state documents, not just driver's licenses and state ID cards, but also on marriage licenses and birth certificates. This bill would also remove medical intervention requirements for changing your name or gender designation on Massachusetts birth certificates, and would also provide a little bit more flexibility on the process of updating your birth certificate, and would allow there to be a certain, you wouldn't necessarily have to change your name and gender marker at the same time. There would still be some requirements around that, but it would not be as strict as it currently is. This would also require the state to provide a gender neutral option whenever a gender designation is requested on any forms or state paperwork. This was reported to the House Ways and Means Committee on October 30th of last year, and that's the last update we have. The Ways and Means Committee did just release the 2025 budget, so we're hoping that clears up their calendar to focus on other things such as this bill and our next bill, which is an act establishing gender-neutral bathrooms. So this bill will change Massachusetts' outdated plumbing codes, or building codes, excuse me, that would allow gender-neutral bathrooms to be built in any renovations or new construction without a variance application. Right now, there's a tedious variance application that is required for any new buildings or renovations seeking a building permit to have gender-neutral restrooms. And the state plumbing code adopted these changes in December of last year, but they have only been adopted into the plumbing code and not into the state building code, so they must still be codified into state law by the passage of this bill to ensure that they are permanent. Again, pending the House Ways and Means Committee. So our final big priority for this year is the Massachusetts Parentage Act. This bill is really bringing Massachusetts' parentage laws, that is, determining parentage, who can be someone's parent, how are you legally identified as someone's parent, which are very outdated. This has been something that's been happening in various states throughout the country, and Massachusetts is really lagging behind. The past few years, we've seen these bills pass in Maine and in Vermont, Rhode Island, and just a couple weeks ago in Michigan. And Massachusetts still has not done this. And this is also the second or third legislative cycle that this bill has been through. So we're really seeing a lack of urgency when it comes to LGBTQ rights in the Massachusetts State House right now. This bill will update all of our laws so that parentage can be applied legally through different types of reproduction, including IVF and surrogacy, and also for same-sex parents who aren't married. Right now, some children are in these situations where they must wait 6 months or longer to establish a parent-child relationship with someone who is not a biological parent. And this can cause a lot of issues and really is problematic, troublesome, and can cost a lot of money because many folks will need to work with lawyers to go through this process. This has been before the Judiciary Committee, and the reporting date was just extended to April 30th. So if you go to the link on this slide, if someone could add this link to the chat, I would appreciate it. This link will take you to GLAAD's website where you can take action on this and urge your legislators to support this bill, and particularly to urge the Judiciary Committee to positively report out this bill. Next, I'm just going to talk about 3 bills that we are supporting. These are not bills that we are actively involved with, but they are bills that we have signed on in support of. So the first is a bill that will address a lot of issues that LGBTQI+ people that are in our state's prisons are facing. This includes access to appropriate HIV testing and treatment. It will officially ban solitary confinement for issues related to identity. So right now, the state is, the prisons are able to put someone into solitary confinement because they are trans for their protection. And this would ban that and require prisons to take other steps to protect their inmates. There is a bill that will for an act relative to trans-inclusive healthcare access that will require insurance companies, this is for private and public coverage, to cover gender-affirming care upon the receipt of a letter from a qualified mental health professional. So this is basically trying to stave off the issue that we're seeing with people who are repeatedly being denied coverage for gender-affirming care, particularly surgeries, by private insurance companies. And essentially this law that will change that so that if someone has a letter from their mental health provider, the insurance company will be required by state law to provide coverage. And finally, we have recently signed on to support an act to prevent human trafficking and improve the health and safety of sex workers. There's a lot of information about this bill out. This is from, I believe, the Boston area. I don't remember the whole name. It's a very long acronym, but it's an organization of sex workers that have drafted this in collaboration with legislators, and also includes a lot of actionable steps specifically targeting the assistance and the decriminalization of sex work, and focuses a lot on trans folks as well, and provides specific regulations around how gender plays in with all of this, etc. There's a lot more information than I can tell you off the top of my head out there. And then I want to talk about our opposition. So this is really the only major opposition that MTPC currently is. Thank you, Boston Sex Workers and Allies Collective, BSWAC. So this is a federal level opposition that we hold. We are not currently really in opposition to anything actively at the state level. There might be some small things that come up, but this is specifically about COSA, or the Kids Online Safety Act. I'm sure many of you have heard about this, but this is a bill that has been very, very prominently been opposed by most major and minor LGBTQ orgs in the country. This recently changed as a new version of the bill was drafted, and almost all national LGBTQ orgs have reversed their opposition. MTPC continues to oppose COSA despite these changes. The changes were good, but they do not alleviate all of our concerns. There is still a major concern for censorship with this bill, along with just a threat of this bill being providing a chilling effect on free speech across the country and on the protection of free speech. I recently spoke with someone at a media outlet called The 19th. If you want to learn more about that, that link I don't have off the top of my head. But here it is. So you can read about that more there. And also, this is not just about federal censorship, just as it wasn't with Sesta Fosta. This is also about how social media corporations have too much power to control the content that we are able to share with each other. And this is particularly true as we are seeing more and more people take fire at not just social media corporations, but at places like MTPC and other organizations that we are providing content. This is like from book bans where people are saying that anything talking about sexual health or LGBT people is pornography or offensive. And this is basically something that will extend that to social media and other internet platforms. Just some information that you might be interested to know is that this bill is currently supported by Elizabeth Warren, and that's just, do what you will with that information. And then our advocacy priorities for this year. First and foremost, we need to hire a full-time staffer to lead our policy and advocacy efforts, as we're seeing this rising tide of anti-trans sentiment and disinformation throughout the state. With the help of this new staff person, we need to prepare for the 2025 to 2026 legislative session, so we can have a formal legislative agenda, which we haven't had in years, and to really work on the development of new and revised bills with many of our legislative partners and our partner organizations such as GLAAD. We also really want to bring back MTPC's Lobby Day, which we haven't done since 2018. So if that's something that you're interested in, stay tuned. And then very much in that same thread, we want to create a volunteer and organizer network to support and advance advocacy and activism efforts in Massachusetts. This is definitely something that MTPC really used to do that we have not had the capacity for over the past few years, and really are going to put more time and effort into this over the next year and a half, especially once we have hired a new full-time person to come in and lead these efforts and really take charge. We are working to reorganize and strengthen the Trans Health Coalition. Our new full-time staff person will also be managing that. I'm just like, this future person is going to change the world. I just want you all to know that. They'll really be able to have a much more involved relationship with the Trans Health Coalition and really turn it into the advocacy group that it is meant to be. And our other priorities will be to formalize the Trans Advocacy Working Group with our partners, to add other partners that we think should be there. We really want to include Interact and other advocates for the intersex community in this work, and just really know that our work is all tied together. So that is just some of the ways in which this group will be going. There are definitely ways that it might be formalized beyond what it is now. And again, that'll be something that we will work with our new advocacy and organizing manager at some point in the next year. And then I'm going to end with our future policy priorities. People ask us a lot, like, why aren't we doing this or why aren't we doing that? And it's truly because we have been sitting in the same few bills for the past 3 legislative cycles because we haven't been able to truly advocate for the bills like we need to be because of our capacity and because of our shifting focus. So our upcoming priorities after we get through where we're at now, first and foremost is the removal of the publication requirement for legal name changes. This is out of date. It is unsafe. It is totally unnecessary. I think, the fact that folks have to go through background checks through the state criminal record system and also publish their name, it makes no sense. This is one of our big priorities. Along with that is also waiving court fees for legal name changes and updates to IDs in Massachusetts. There is a waiver for indigency right now, which is based on a very strict set of requirements for income or receiving support from the state or the federal government. And we need to address the fact that folks having to pay to legally change their name is not lived equity. If someone has changing their name due to their gender identity, they should not have to pay for that because that is unfair and inequitable. Additionally, we want to continue to fight for increased coverage for gender-affirming healthcare and procedures by both public and private health insurance. There are so many things that are a part of gender-affirming healthcare and procedures that are just not covered by insurance. So many places will not cover things like hair removal, et cetera, et cetera. And these are things that really we need to address. If they're going to medicalize transness, they need to pay for all of it. And then finally, or the next two things really is just about, we're hearing from so many people, their providers don't know how to treat them. Whether that is providers who are only providing their patients with gender affirming care and no other health care, or people who are really not knowledgeable at providing affirming and inclusive gender affirming health care. One of the big things that we want to fight for is for required training on providing gender affirming healthcare, along with providing inclusive and affirming total healthcare for trans non-binary patients as a part of all licensure and certification for mental health and medical health providers in Massachusetts. We know that access to this care is so limited because there are so few places that are able to provide this care. And we really, really want to address this at the core, which is by educating providers. And finally, we know that there is a lot of issues outstanding for folks who are seeking housing and employment in Massachusetts who are being denied based off of their gender identity or presentation. Right now, there are protections for that in the law, but we need to fight for strengthened reporting and enforcement for these legal protections so that we can create better futures and more power for trans folks. And I believe that is everything that I have for policy. So I'm going to hand it over to Trey Andre.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you for the energy that you brought. And also thank you, MG, as well. I'm just so constantly impressed and just so grateful and so proud to have the team that we have at MTPC and the work that we're doing. Continuing on, MTPC also provides education and training services to work toward widespread cultural competency, belonging, and lived equity for our community. And so this looks like Pathways to Inclusion, which is our Trans 101 training, designing custom workshops, our speaking engagements, and expanding on our consulting services and our one-on-one support. Looking to the future, we will be hiring a new full-time staff person to lead our education and training services. If you can move to the next slide. We are planning on hosting more webinars for community programming and professional development, like MG mentioned when we were talking about the Trans Leadership Academy, making sure that that is expanded to being able to be accessible to all of our community members, as well as expanding our offerings with a learning management system. Listen, we're trying to take us into the, into the 21st century here, So moving from analog to digital, and then develop a train the trainers program so that we can really provide more opportunities for our community members. And then in general, our future plans for the organization includes securing new and continued funding. We talked about the funding consistent and long-term corporate sponsorship for the Trans Leadership Academy. Really want to expand our training and education services to be a major revenue source. Earlier, when we looked at the graph, that was about 10% of our revenue. We really want to expand that to be more like 25%. And then reduce the reliance on the restricted performance-based grant funding, as well as developing new fundraising strategies for major giving and planned giving. Then we want to strengthen our people power. hiring new staff to increase workload equity. So making sure that there is staff for our advocacy work, our education and training, community engagement, operations, and communications. We do plan on hiring for the education and learning manager and advocacy and organizing manager in our next fiscal year. But along with that, being able to pay our staff a livable wage and increase benefits as appropriate, as well as our ongoing professional development for folks within the organization, so that we really want to develop community and organizational leaders and foster long, stable, and successful careers here at MTPC. And then finally, we are working on establishing our own 501c3 independence. We are currently fiscally sponsored by Bagley, but we anticipate independent 501c3 status coming sometime within 2025 or 2026. And so we have been working with lawyers with our plan to separate fiscally. It's time for us to leave the nest and go through our own transition. And when we do that, we will be then doing a whole another needs community needs assessment, as well as maybe doing some rebranding of the organization so that it really reflects the work that we're doing. And so those are the plans for the future. We really hope that you stay connected, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media, support our work, get involved. And here are some of the information and the ways in which you can do that. And just also want to share some upcoming events that MTPC will be hosting. We will be having a Jesse Frieden come in and have a transcreative storytelling workshop on the 17th. And on May 2nd, we have a youth name change clinic at Safe Homes Worcester for folks who are 23 and under only. And that is on May 2nd. And then we have our annual Professionals for Trans Rights Gala on Thursday, May 16th at the Crystal Ballroom in Somerville. We really, really hope to see you there. And that pretty much concludes all of the work and all of the updates and all of the future visioning that we have for MTPC. I'm so glad that you joined us this evening. I know we only have a few more minutes left, but I will turn it over to Casey, see if we have any questions from folks in the audience.
Thank you so much. There is a slide up right now with a group of steering committee folks, and I am the goofy one in the bow tie looking at Trey Andre, and that is how I feel both about Trey Andre and about this work that we are doing. Goofy and excited and just kind of giving a side eye. So thank you all for joining us. We had anticipated having a bit more time for our Q&A, but I want to open it up. Please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask any questions, any burning questions, or drop them in the chat. And I would love to point them in the right direction, or one of us can answer it, hopefully. All right. Marcia, what is involved with the independent 501c3? That is the question.
Marcia girl, a lot. We sort of like need to sort of reconcile our organization as we are currently, because we're fiscally sponsored by Bagley. So we need to file with the Secretary of State, make sure that we are up to date on all of our paperwork. Then we need to submit a 40-page application, and then we wait to see pretty much what, we wait to see what the state says. It may take anywhere from 6 months to a year for us to get to hear back about our status. And from there also, it means sort of what we need to do with Bagley as well in terms of because they act as our accountant. They oversee sort of like our bank account is currently under Bagley, and so we also have to look into what financial separation, the plan for financial separation. And Grace, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, since you are our not only our treasurer, but also the executive director of Bagley.
Sure. And hi, Marcia. For background, it's generally always part of a plan when an organization is fiscally sponsored that at some point it grows and is established enough where it can go out on its own. So usually the plan is for the fiscal sponsorship to be somewhat temporary, and we went on longer than it's usual because we know that MTPC was focused on the legislative work, and that kind of pushed us in another direction. But now's the time it's coming. MTPC is growing under Trey Andre's leadership, and I think it's important just on another level, but in terms of the next few years, as I'm looking at my own retirement, that this happens so that the new executive director Bagley isn't coming in with a relationship that was really established by the former executive director and the former ED of MTPC. So I say that as background. It's all amicable and positive and wonderful from Bagley's perspective and MTPC's, and happy to support it. But as Trey Andre said, there's a lot of legal and practical things to put in place first, and some of them are logistical that the lawyer is moving us forward, and some of it will really depend on a combination of funding, and maybe there'll be some transitional period where Bagley is continuing to support MTPC even as it has its own C3. So we're working out the details, but it's very exciting, and I'm glad we're at this point after 20 plus years.
Thanks, Grace.
And Marcia, to answer the question about the C4, where that won't happen at the same time, that is something that we will be thinking about in the future as we continue to grow our advocacy work and really want to make sure that we are safely established as a stable C3 before we try and engage in C4 work. And also, while I'm here, I just want to shout out Grace. Grace is one of the founding board members of MTPC and has been with MTPC for 21 plus years. So thank you so much, Grace, for your incredible leadership with MTPC over all the years.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
It's been a delight, and this is exciting to see MTPC where it is now and where it's heading. So glad to be helpful and supportive.
I want to keep the chat open for any other questions. We did have to zoom through, so we were unable to introduce all of the steering committee members, but if the steering committee members could throw up a thumbs up or anything for those of you who are on camera, just give a wave.
Maybe we can stop sharing the slide, and so we can go back to seeing everyone's faces. Yeah.
Yeah, great idea. Look at all these faces. We have a really robust steering committee. One of my dreams after getting like awesome leadership was to have the steering committee grow and representing all folks that are representing our community, and we would like to continue to grow that. So we are always a transitioning space. If you have folks who are interested in volunteering or being on the steering committee or having other roles, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are a great group of folks. It's one of my favorite times of the month to get together with these folks who are doing awesome stuff in the trans community by and for trans folks. So, any last questions from anyone? Thank you all again so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. It was wonderful to be with you all and wonderful to share all of the things that we're doing and we're planning. And we hope that you stay with us along this journey. We really envision a bright, vibrant future for trans folks, and I will accept nothing less. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye all. Thank you.